Welcome back to HPP, the podcast that covers college basketball and the NBA draft inside and out. I'm Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. And today we are joined by some of the old crew, the original crew, Drew Barton, the Bay Area Bomber, and Cam Riehl. Did we ever give you a nickname, Cam?
I'm never gonna get it. I'm never gonna get one, Rich. I've been waiting.
All right. I'll have to work on that, but not today. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a little college hoops notebook and a little NBA notebook. And we'll start off with college first. And well, before I begin, I'm going to ask you two gentlemen, Cam, I know you're traveling. You're getting ready to travel back to Tennessee. And Drew, I think all your family's around you, correct?
Yeah, we're pretty locked in for the holidays at this point. I'm actually at my girlfriend's place right now. This is my first day off in probably almost 2 months.
Wow.
With basketball season in full swing. I mean, we actually play again on Tuesday. So wow. I told the team that I'm going to cut all the practice film and edit all the scout stuff from my girlfriend's house today because I needed a break because then I'm back on the road tomorrow. We've actually played – this will be our 9th game already. And we have played 7 of 9. We'll have been on the road to start the year.
All right.
So,
and
is the road dogs.
Is the team ranked nationally?
So our women's team was receiving votes, and was projected to take second in our conference. They're off to a bit of a slow start, I'll admit, but they have the talent to turn it around. Our men's team did not receive any votes, wasn't ranked, but. This is our head coach's, when he came in, this is his first year where he has a team of his guys. He kind of inherited a roster and then COVID happened. So he kind of had a weird dichotomy of like guys who are the old coach's crew and his new guys. And so far, now that this is his guys' team, like I was saying, we have a couple guys that are playing really, really good basketball right now. Our center's up to 21.5 points, 7.5 boards, shooting 66% from the floor through 8 games. And then our starting point guard is up to about 18 points, 4 assists, and is a 2-to-1 to turnover assist ratio right now. And he's shooting like 54% from the field. So we've been playing pretty good. Our third, kind of our glue guy, he's a 6'5" forward, kind of 3-4 hybrid, just tough as nails kid from Australia, just kind of does all the little things. He's been banged up, so we've had him in and out of the lineup. So hopefully when he's back, along with our 2 guys who are pushing for that all-conference, maybe even all-American nod early in the season. And we kind of have another 3/4 who's having a bit of a breakout right now. Those 4, the way they're playing, we might be able to make some noise here. We can get through December. We should be favored in most of our games through December. We actually have an exhibition against Santa Clara coming up, which won't count against our record, obviously. Right. But outside of that game, looking at our schedule, I feel pretty confident, and we're going to flip it and be at home a lot now. We opened up on the road pretty much, like I said, 7 of 9. So now we'll get, I think, 4 of our next 6 are back at the crib. So,
right.
And we can get a nice little win streak going.
And Cam, you were supposed to fly out yesterday?
I was supposed to fly out this morning, but it got pushed back. Yeah. No, my only road games are going across town, for a nice middle school girls basketball game, a riveting 27-19, sort of scoring fest. But it's been good, man. It's been fun.
Actually, then you must have really enjoyed yesterday's, or no, I guess that was Saturday's Notre Dame Oklahoma State game.
It was like looking in the mirror. I was watching my team.
It went into overtime, and the final score, I think, was 62-61. Those 2 teams set back basketball like 50 years. Notre Dame looks really bad this year, and somehow Oklahoma State's even worse. So I say that, by the way, Irish fans, I'm wearing a Notre Dame hoodie, but it's just not going to be the Irish's year. All right, so let's move on. I guess, I keep on, and by the way, Caleb is not with us because he's stuck in a hotel in Detroit because his parents came to pick him up to take him. He lives in his parents are in Dayton, Ohio. That's where he was born. But their car broke down And so they're all stranded in Detroit right now. And I haven't quite heard yet. Apparently the car is shot. I got a text from him this morning. He said the car is shot. It's dead. There's no fixing it. And I don't know how. The last thing I texted him is, how the hell are you getting home? And haven't heard back. But all right. So I always stress, and I stressed last week with Caleb, how important these games really are, because they set up the strength of schedule rankings that we hear about forever in January and February and March. That's where these strength of schedules are built. So Big Ten, who we commented on last week, not off to a great start. They split with the Big East, 4-4 in the Gavitt games. And that's pretty much usually what happens in those Gavitt games. It usually does go about 4-4. But only out of the 14, or is it 15? 15 Big Ten teams now? I lost track. It's 15, right?
I think it's 15, but at this point, it might as well be 30. I don't really know anymore.
I think it's 15, and only 3 of them are still undefeated. Only 3. Compare that with the Big 12. Big 12, who has 14 teams this one season until Texas and Oklahoma move on, they have 10 undefeated teams. The ones that are not undefeated, most of them only have 1 loss, except for the aforementioned Oklahoma State, which is 1-3. So my point being, I don't know if I have a question here. It just looks like Big 12 is off to a great start. And so we always talk about, last year we were saying, everybody's saying Big 12's the best, but we didn't quite buy it. And in the NCAA tournament, that played out. But you guys have any comments on the Big 12's hot start?
I mean, the only team I've seen play, I saw a half, I think it was the first half of that Kansas-Kentucky game. And I mean, Kentucky actually looked pretty good. I'm always critical of them, as I think we have been the last couple of years. We've done this just when you roll out the whole one and done freshman thing and how that goes. But they looked pretty good. But man, Hunter Dickinson is just the guy is just. I mean, I know at this point he's a grown man, he's a known commodity, but he was awesome. DeJuan was really good. I mean, the duo were really, really good.
Yeah. Kentucky had no one. With their injuries and other things, they had no one to match up with Dickinson.
Yeah, he's going to be a monster. He's going to push for National Player of the Year. I feel like he's motivated. He's in his system. And then my friend was watching. Was actually at the Texas the game that they almost lost when A. Smith won them. Was it yesterday? Who did they almost lose yesterday?
Yesterday against Louisville.
Yeah. Yes, Louisville. He was there and he said that, I mean, while they didn't look good, he's like, they're a good team. It was just one of those kind of games that just didn't go their way. But he thought that they looked pretty good and thought that Max was doing his thing, which, I haven't seen them play yet personally, but that's the only Big 12 stuff I've really gotten to catch.
That was one of the better games so far of the season. And Louisville, I didn't say this when we were doing the ACC preview, but Louisville was one of those teams. It's like, if these guys all play up to their potential, this could be a pretty damn good team. And Louisville's guard tandem of Sky Clark and Tylor Johnson, who's a freshman, they're really fast. And Johnson's a freshman. And then what's the kid from the former Tennessee guy, Huntley Hadfield? He played great. And also Trey White, a transfer from USC, was another super high recruit. He played very good for Louisville. I was really impressed with Louisville. And their coach, Kenny Payne, said at halftime when they were it was very close at halftime. In fact, Louisville may have had like a 1-point lead at halftime. Now, he's been there for over a year. He said at halftime, this is the best his team has ever played for him. And they really just, they didn't play like Louisville did last year. So I was impressed. But as long as we're talking about that game, the highest recruit on that team, Dennis Evans, the center. Have either of you seen Dennis Evans?
I have not.
All right. He was a top 30 recruit, 5-star guy. I'm telling you right now, he's not ready for the NBA. Caden Shedrick, the transfer from Virginia, just took him to the cleaners the whole game. The guy can't defend the pick and roll. He's slow up and down the court. I didn't see him do anything offensively. He was supposedly out there to protect the rim, but I think Caden Shedrick, I'm serious when I say this. I'm not exaggerating. I think he had like a career night in terms of rebounds. He had like a Hunter Dickinson night. It was like 27 points and like 18 boards. It was incredible. All right, so we got to move on to. I did want to talk a little bit about some of the tourneys that have already taken place, the holiday tourneys. That's kind of the thrust of this episode. And the first one I got to bring up is the Arizona tip-off. Cam, do you know who won the Arizona tip-off?
I don't, Rich, but I can't wait to hear.
The 5-0 South Carolina Gamecocks. The 5-0 South Carolina Gamecocks won the Arizona tip-off.
My SEC takes are not looking good. They're not looking good. I thought that team was going to be trash.
Well, okay. So let's examine this.
Are you telling me they still are, Rich?
I'm telling you that they beat Virginia. They beat UC Upstate. They beat Virginia Tech by 2. They beat VMI, and that was pretty close. They beat DePaul, and that was pretty close. And yesterday was really, to me, their first real test was Grand Canyon, who we predict to win the WAC conference. And Grand Canyon is a good team. Trust me. You know, you don't want to play them in the NCAA tournament. But really, that was the first. I mean, beating Virginia Tech's good. But yeah, they're 5-0. So I think they definitely look better than last year. In fact, Michi Johnson, I think he's only led the team in scoring once so far. So, and he's your boy. All right, so moving on. Clemson won the Asheville Championship. They beat Davidson. Yesterday, Miami of Florida beat Kansas State. Miami of Florida is looking just as good as last year, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
I haven't really seen them play, but I was super, super high on them last year. And they bring back Hack. They bring back, like, I just think that there's pieces there that we shouldn't really be that surprised. You have veteran pieces, guys who've been on this stage. I mean, I haven't seen them play, but I was super, super high on them last year. I think I picked them. I didn't pick them to go to the Final Four. I had them in the Elite Eight, and they made that come true. So I'm not really surprised. I mean, when you have, I feel like in college basketball, if you have a big and you have a guard, a lead big and like a lead guard, and they're experienced and they're productive, doesn't matter where you're at, you can be competitive, and they have 2 guys that are going to be at the top of their positions in the country when it's all said and done if they stay healthy.
Well, right now they have more
down the roster too. They have so much size. Like they don't have a lot of center position size, but their whole roster is just about 6'5", 6'7". So
and
that's what they were last year.
And they're athletic too.
Yeah.
And the guy that we talked up a lot last year and we said was going to be an NBA draft prospect this year, Wooga Poplar. Wooga is he's lighting it up. And then Matthew Cleveland transferred from Florida State, and he's playing the best offensive basketball of his life, if you ask me. In the meantime, the team they beat, Kansas State, they don't look nearly as good as they were last year.
Losing your 2 best players will do that to you.
Yep. And so Houston won the Charleston Classic, which was an 8-team tourney, and they beat Dayton in the finals. Dayton, of course, lost Malachi Smith for the season. They still, advanced to the final game. Houston pretty much handled them, and Houston looks as tough as ever. LJ Cryer stepping in for Marcus Sasser, and it's kind of like plug and play for them. And other tournament action, there was the Hall of Fame tip-off, which was played at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, and Mississippi State beat Northwestern in that matchup. in that tournament. Both teams came in undefeated, and I think Mississippi State's now 5-0 without their star player, Tulu Smith. So that's pretty impressive. Auburn won the Legends Classic, which was played in Brooklyn. They defeated St. Bonaventure. Janiyah Broome was really good in that tournament. And then two teams that probably could see in the NCAA tournament in March would be, they both came into this game undefeated, and that's Liberty and Vermont. And Liberty prevailed. Kyle Rode was the most valuable player of the tournament. He's a nice shooter, good size for a forward. And then lastly, up your way, in the Continental Tire main event, which I think is in Vegas, San Diego State outlasted Washington. That game was pretty tight.
3-point game, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so Washington barely survived the game before. They had a tough one with Xavier. So, all right. So let me ask you some questions here. We had some unbelievable upsets, if you ask me, this week. You ready for this? Arkansas got beat by UNC Greensboro. Long Beach State beat Michigan at Michigan, and Arkansas lost at home too. All these teams, I believe, lost at home. Jackson State, who we predicted would win the Southern Conference, started the year 0-5. Who do they get their first victory against? Missouri. How do you figure that one? And then Bryant, who we also predicted would win their conference, defeats the darlings of the Final Four last year, Florida Atlantic. So which one of these upsets surprises you the most?
I didn't watch any of these games.
I didn't either. I'm just saying.
I mean, I want to tip my cap to Long Beach State just because they gave, if I'm not mistaken, they gave San Diego a run in the game before. They were pretty competitive with State, and then to come back and then on the road take down Michigan's pretty impressive. I mean, that's a pretty tough back-to-back to play, and to give the runner-up a good game and then to go beat Michigan. So I can't speak to the games because I didn't watch them. I do know FAU, I think, was probably the biggest fluke out of all of them. I think FAU shot like 30% from the floor or something horrendous. I mean, they were just awful from the floor. So that, I don't know if that's indicative of them as a team. I think that's just probably going to be their worst shooting night of the year. And it might have just came against an opponent that they should have beat, and the timing just was really bad. But I'm going to give it to Long Beach State just because 2 games, 2 tough opponents, and then to pull one out on the road after almost pulling off another upset in a pretty competitive game. I'm going to give it to them since I didn't actually watch the game, see the flow and all that.
No, I didn't see any of these 5 games, but I'll tell you the one that shocked the hell out of me, and probably Cam too, losing at Bud Walton Arena. I mean, that just doesn't happen to Arkansas. They just don't lose at Bud Walton Arena. And they lost to Greensboro. I'm not, Greensboro is not a bad team, but we didn't pick them to win their conference. And so all these other teams, we didn't pick Long Beach to win the Big West, but Jake, I predicted Long Beach would finish second in that conference behind Santa Barbara, who's off to a really slow start because AJ Mitchell has been hurt, and he's their star player, and he's been hurt. And so they've gotten off to a slow start. But all right. So let's talk about which teams can concern you the most. And I'm going to give you a choice of 4. St. Mary's, 2-3 start. Missouri, who we just said lost to a previously winless Jackson State. They're 3-2. Maryland, who's dropped 3 games in a row. Admittedly, 2 were close games to decent opponents, and then they got walloped by Villanova. So they're 1-3. And St. John's, who's 3-2. So I think most people projected all these teams to be in the tournament. which one concern you the most that might not make the NCAA tournament? Let's start with you, Drew.
So I'm gonna have recency bias here, and I guess regional bias, because this is the team I've seen play the most this year, period, and that's St. Mary's. I've seen them live. I watched them last night against Xavier. I watched them a bit against San Diego State. This was a team that came into the year in the early preseason polls. I mean, people had in the teens in their rankings. The WCC coaches voted them as the winners of now by one vote, but they voted them as the preseason winners of the conference.
Can I stop you there? Jake and I also picked them to win the conference, and when we previewed the West Coast Conference.
I had, my girlfriend is their athletic social media director. Like I've heard a lot about St. Mary's, and as anyone on the pod knows, I'm a huge Zags guy, so it's been like a dagger in the heart to hear how this betrayal and how all of a sudden everyone just forgot about that little team up in Spokane. But all joking aside, they have been to watch. I know I sent some notes. I was at the Weber State game. I was there live, courtside, watching it. And, I mean, their offense is horrendous. I mean, we're talking 4 or 5 minute cold stretches. We're talking possessions that are bad in terms of like shot doesn't get up, shot clock violation, bad. Mahaney is in a hell of a sophomore slump. I know he had 25 against New Mexico.
He started off really hot, like the first 2 games. But yesterday he went 2 of 13.
He was 0 for 9. He missed his first 9 shots. I don't think he scored until he got to the free throw line at one point, if I remember correctly. And so my concerns with this team stemmed from they lost Logan Johnson and they lost Kyle Bowe, and they lost 2 of their 5 starters. And I think what made the team really tough last year was they had this kind of 5-man rotation where nobody was like the pure alpha, like this is the Drew Timme or this is the Oscar Tshiebwe or this is the Zach Edey, but they were all really complementary. They all could kind of, you have a game, I have a game, you chip in 12, you chip in 14, you chip in 9, you chip in 10. They had Marciulionis off the bench where he's better suited at, who could kind of come in and give them some point guard relief and more of a creator than scorer. But now those guys have been bumped up. Marciulionis is now starting. Mahaney's now being looked to be the guy, the player. I mean, he was a Wooden Award preseason watch list guy. I just don't think they brought in anything to replace what they lost. Dugas's back is clearly not right. He had to come out of that Xavier game. He didn't start the second half. I don't even think he got back into the game.
Oh, so the back injury that he suffered in the tournament last year is still bothering him.
So at the halftime of the Xavier game, there were comments when I was at the game against Weber State. People had made some comments, but he played through, I believe, pretty much finished out the game. The Xavier game, he came out at half, did not come back. He literally checked in, came out with the starters, and then before tip, the first half inbound, second half inbound, they pulled him out, wrapped him up, and he sat, I believe, the rest of the second half.
Wow.
So now you're talking about a guy who, in my opinion, was never built to be a true number 2. I think he's more of just like a really solid role player.
Right.
Starting. Right. Now he's out. So now that Mahaney load has just been increased. And I think to kind of really get to the point is, and I know we'll talk about him later, I watched Dillon Jones and he kind of square off the 2 supposed best players in the Weber State game, the St. Mary's game. One guy looks like an NBA player. He has the body, he has the build. Take away the production. Just look at his build. Look how he moves. I mean, 6'6", kind of plays a forward guard, a little hybrid. And you have Mahaney, who I've seen Mahaney play since he was 14 years old. Super talented kid. He's tough. He's gritty. But at the end of the day, I do think there's a level where when you're a 6'2", kind of shooting guard who's not supremely athletic, kind of relying on the mid-range.
Not very muscular at this point.
Not very muscular. It's like, and you're the focus now. There's no Logan Johnson, who is a better athlete, who could drive and kick and kind of break down defenses. Mahaney's game is more kind of lull you to sleep, comes off screens, kind of, you lose sight of him. Next thing you know, he's open in the corner, hits a 3. He's not coming down and shaking people, getting into the paint, dishing for others, creating for others. And Marciulionis is not the answer at point guard, in my opinion. I think he's shooting 20% from the field. Now, the entire offense is struggling, but he wasn't a threat on offense as their 6th man. He's not a threat as a starter. And so teams are just kind of sitting off going, we know you want to get others going. We're not going to let that happen. Can you beat us? And I think he had 14 against Xavier, which was I think a career high. And I still don't think he shot the ball particularly well. So I'm going to say them just for all the hype that was put out there. I mean, we know that for a long time. And I believe this, never stop believing. It's the Zags conference. they don't look like a tournament team right now. I mean, we're talking about 4 or 5 minute offensive stretches where it's like they're not scoring the ball, and like I said, they're not getting shots up, and they don't have a guy that they can just go, you know what, give me a bucket. Let's forget the offense, go post up on the block. We'll set a high ball screen and go 1-on-1. They are and they're getting blown off the court by teams. It's not like they've lost nail biters to San Diego and Xavier. I mean, they blew a 16-point lead at home to Weber State. Dillon Jones took the game over and went for 29 and 10, and they had no answer. So I'm gonna go with the Gales.
You got an answer, Cam? You have any thoughts about?
Yeah, I'm looking at Missouri. I think, we had talked about them in the SEC preview, and I just, we had talked about them as kind of like a bubble team, one of the lower middle rung SEC teams that could, make a run, especially with some of the transfer talent that they've had coming in. And Vanover so far this year is just not, I mean, he's been a zero factor for their team.
Yeah.
I don't know if
by the way, he was suspended from one game.
He was suspended.
Yeah, Dennis Gates. I mean, Dennis Gates did this with guys last year too. He just seems to be one of those guys that you really gotta watch yourself, or you get on his shit list easy. I mean, Connor Vanover's a 5th-year graduate student who's played. He started off at Berkeley. It just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would get suspended. I don't know. Dennis Gates, I don't know. He seems like he's a little hard to get along with.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. He's played 2 games so far this year, and I was looking too, and he had actually gotten pulled from the Jackson State game. So I think that's a pretty major contributor for their loss there. But yeah, I mean, their offense looks pretty stagnant, and they can't really defend anybody. They've slowed down a lot, from the team from last year, and they're looking at a 3-2 record right now. It's not encouraging for their chances at a playoff run.
I actually watched them play Minnesota. They had no business winning that game. Minnesota had like a 16-point lead, and they just played so poorly. And it was Christie, the freshman. Is it Cameron Christie? The younger Christie is a freshman there. And he lost the game for him single-handedly by trying to play. Their best player is Dawson Garcia. And I don't know if you guys remember Dawson Garcia from Marquette, North Carolina, but now he's playing in Minnesota. And he was having a really nice game. And I swear to God, the last 5 minutes, he touched the ball once, and I think it was on a putback. They just stopped giving the ball to Garcia, and they just turnovers and bad shots. And I was like, don't suspend Vanover, suspend Christie. So yeah, I'm not a big believer in Dennis Gates right now. The whole Isaiah Mosley situation was really weird last year. I mean, I know Isaiah Mosley was ever the easiest guy to get along with, but I don't know. It seemed like it could have been handled better. So I hear you there. All right. So I just want to go over a couple of injuries before we move on. And most of them are in the Pac-12, but Oregon, who was in one of the big holiday tournaments, Nafale Dante is out again, and they also lose Nate Biddle, who suffered a sprained wrist yesterday or the day before. So this team had already been missing 2 of their 3 prized freshmen. So Oregon, just like last year, is just riddled from injuries from top to bottom. And their one prize freshman who is playing, Kwame Evans, isn't playing that great. Good news, though, for USC. They get back Kobe Johnson and Boogie Ellis, and those guys are back. And everything I'm hearing about Bronny is, I don't know. I think he gets evaluated at the end of the month, and then if everything goes well there, then he will start practicing. So I think we'll see him by January, if not sooner. And a couple other notes from the Pac-12, Spencer Jones and Brandon Angel both didn't play on last Friday, so they're going to be in one of these big holiday tournaments. I don't know the status of either of those players. So those could be big losses for Stanford. And lastly, and Cam, I know how you love to laugh at my pronunciations, so I have come up with a solution. Or should I say the University, UCLA has come up with a solution. So they get one of their star players was waiting for the NCAA to get waivers, okay? And you want to attempt this name, but here's my solution.
Biocontestel.
Okay, that's your pronunciation, but here we go. Here we go. All right, watch this from UCLA's website. This is awesome if I can make it work. Come on, you bastard. Yeah. Here we go.
Berke Büyüktuncel.
Berke Büyüktuncel. It doesn't look anything like it. Let's try that again.
There's like 3 R's in there that don't get pronounced.
Can we just have this on every show?
Berke Büyüktuncel.
So that's so Berke Boot. It sounds like it says Büyüktuncel. That's how it sounds like he's saying it. It looks nothing like it's spelled. He's a Turkish player. I believe he's a top 100 player. Probably won't come out this year, but he's definitely an NBA prospect. He's a stretch forward. Stretch 4, but also probably could play the 3, can score inside and out. He's one of my more favorite of the international players that are not at the very, very top. You know, we have like about 5 or 6 guys at the very, very top, and he's one of the, to me, is like in that next group that's probably a year or 2 away from going into the draft. But anyway, UCLA gets him, and that's a big, some positive news there. So we shall move on, and that closes our notebook. And like last year, we're going to do a stock report on a weekly basis. We're going to talk about a few players that are really hot and a few players that are not hot, but we're going to put a little different twist on it this year. What we're going to do is, even though a player is hot, it doesn't necessarily mean we believe he's an NBA prospect. So basically our job is we're going to put it out to the hottest guys, and then we're going to say, is this guy an NBA guy? Is this guy, somebody whose draft stock is really rising, or is he just a good college player, or vice versa for the players who are cold? So we're going to start off with 2 big guys. And I would say in a lot of ways, their games aren't too dissimilar, and that's Jaedon LeDee and Joel Soriano. Now, Jaedon LeDee is more of a power forward for San Diego State. Joel Soriano is their huge big man rebounder, shot blocker. And of course, we got to see the LeDee a lot last year in the NCAA tournament. So what do you guys think? Are you buying or selling their NBA stock, those 2 big guys?
I haven't seen Soriano play this year, so I don't want to make a judgment call on him just because I haven't got a chance to see him play. I only saw LeDee play that first half or so against St. Mary's, and he had his way. He was having his way with them. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say he's the best player in the country right now, just from a production standpoint. I mean, he's averaging almost a 30-point double-double. But I don't know. This is a hard one because, like, history tells me that he's an efficient player around the basket. You know, I think for his career, I think he's shooting right around 50%, like close to 50% for his career from the field. But he's not a 3-point shooter. He's always been an okay rebounder. I mean, he's playing 35 minutes a game, so the rebound, like, the numbers are ballooning. So, is there an option to, like, maybe hold, wait and see? Because I don't know. Like, this wasn't a guy that was super on my like radar, but it's really hard to ignore 27 and 11 a game. And they have played some good teams. I mean, they beat a ranked St. Mary's team. I mean, they did just beat Washington. They lost to BYU, but I think BYU is like 4-0 right now. So I mean, they're actually playing some pretty good basketball. And they did beat, I think it was Long Beach or whoever just beat Michigan.
Yeah,
so it's
they
like
beat Long Beach.
So they have. It's not like they played a complete cupcake schedule, but I don't know. I mean, he's also a fifth-year guy, so there's also an element of just like you've just been doing this a long time. I don't know. I don't think I'm ready to personally buy just yet. I mean, he's just because it's such a big departure from what he has been, and it's like, is it a hot stretch now? If a couple weeks from now he's still doing this as they continue to play throughout their non-conference schedule, but I mean, we're looking at a guy who's taking 10 more shots a game than he was last year. He's playing almost over double the minutes, so it's like, I don't know. And he's still not a three-point shooter. So I don't know if I'm ready to completely buy just yet. But I will say he's playing like the best guy in the country right now from a production standpoint.
From an overall production standpoint,
yeah.
Cam, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, just looking at Soriano, like I feel like he does all of the things that you need from a rotation center. Like he's a good shot blocker. He's at the college level, he's an elite rebounder.
Yeah.
Granted, he's not going to space the floor for you, to an extreme extent, but
though he's not a bad foul shooter, and he has attempted some threes this year. So
he's starting to take them. We'll see though. He's another kind of wait and see guy. I mean, so far this year his shots are down. Who's he remind you of?
Valanciunas.
Yeah, kind of just a big body.
Yeah, just a big monster.
Solid.
Yeah.
I can see that. Like
I think both of these guys, I don't think either will be drafted, but I think they have a chance to latch on.
For sure.
With LeDee, he's more athletic,
Absolutely.
And he can defend. He's more versatile defender. He's also has always been able to at least hit the mid-range shot.
He is taking some threes this year too. Yeah. Like as a guy who never took them, he's at least attempting them.
Right. So he actually, if he continues, he actually might maybe move in the second round. I don't know about Soriano just because, guys of his archetype are just so frowned upon, that,
Yeah, he feels like a two-way guy that you pick up.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the
window. But he'll dominate in the G League.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So we'll move on. But Dillon Jones, you saw Dillon Jones in person. Is there anything you'd like to add? I mean, we interviewed Dillon Jones this summer. He's definitely going to be in our top 100, and he's going to be, I would say right now, he's right on the edge of being a second round pick. So it could go either way on my part. Yeah. My feeling has always been with Dillon is he's very big and strong, but I wonder if he's quick and fast enough to actually be like a regular rotation player in the NBA.
He's kind of like a tweener almost. He's got the size, but he doesn't have does he have the versatility? I'm going to say if we're doing buying and selling, I'm going to buy that he, as of right now, would eke into kind of my later second round. I mean, the production is there. I mean, this is a guy, he went into Moraga and dominated St. Mary's. He's produced in every game. They haven't played the most brutal schedule. I know they lost to Gardner-Webb by one.
But they did play somebody good. Didn't they play somebody good yesterday?
Oh, they did play Yale. They played Yale.
Yeah, they played Yale.
Yeah.
And Yale beat somebody good. Yeah, I mean, Yale's a really good team. You don't play Yale in the NCAA
yeah, they did beat Yale. Yeah, no, I didn't even think. So I'm gonna buying right now. I mean, I totally get the concerns, but it's hard to argue with the production. The guy's been an absolute monster on the glass, and I'm always a fan of guys who can impact the game. When they are that tweener kind of they don't just need to score the ball. He scored 20 plus in a couple of games, but Yale, I'm looking at it now. Didn't shoot the ball particularly great. Still had 2 assists, got 12 boards, and was 6 for 6 from the free throw line. And he's actually been a stud free throw shooter on pretty solid volume. He wasn't great against Colgate. He was 1 for 5, but outside of that game, he's only missed 3 free throws on the year, and he's taken a lot. So I'm buying. I totally get the concerns. And as they get deeper into their season and maybe make some noise at the tournament, then we'll maybe be able to answer some of the questions. But from what I've seen, like just watching him, the strength is there, the competitiveness is there, the willingness to, rise up to the big moment. Went into a hostile environment on a ranked team and gave him the business. From what I saw, I have no problem with him being in that, maybe pick 50 to 60 range right now for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm buying too. I think if you look around the NBA right now, like Dillon Jones fits an archetype of guys that are really coveted at the moment. Like a 6'6" guy that can handle the ball a little bit, be a connector on offense, get you some points if you need it, but that's not his primary function. Like he's just going to go out, he's going to contribute in all of the little ways, when you really see his game transition up to the next level.
Right.
I think maybe like a poor man's Grant Williams kind of vibe. Like,
yeah,
does a little bit of like,
he doesn't excel on the defensive end, but actually Grant, I don't know, would you call Grant as good a defensive player at Tennessee as he is now?
Well, he played center. So
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Like Grant Williams' thing was always verticality and strength. Like at the NBA level, he struggles with like the Darius Garland type dudes.
Who was?
But just about it, yeah. But just about anybody else he can guard. He's your Giannis stopper,
right?
Stopper. But
again, like kind of a poor man's
version.
Like
I really look at Dillon Jones. I think of Josh Okogie.
Okay,
just a thick body. A little bit more mobile than a Grant Williams, but he's gonna.
I think Okogie is superior athlete. Even at Georgia Tech, he was. But it's kind of funny. Okogie did stuff the stat sheet very similarly at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, for sure. But right. Yeah, I'd say I'd buy.
So now we're going to look at the small guys. We got two small guys to talk about: Trey Alexander of Creighton and Tylor Perry. Both of them are just playing really, really well. I think Alexander's probably playing a tad better, but Kansas State's played a pretty tough schedule so far. And Alexander has the advantage of having a lot of players to play off of, starting with Ryan Kalkbrenner. I don't know, Kansas State right now is looking pretty much Tylor Perry and Arthur Kaluma. There's a tie in there because Kaluma used to play with Trey Alexander. So Alexander's also a little bigger, about, I don't know, what is Perry? What do they have Perry listed at?
5'11", I think is what he's listed at.
Well, you know what I noticed yesterday when I was watching him play? Tylor Perry standing against Nigel Pack. He makes Nigel Pack look tall. And that's my concern with Tylor Perry. But what do you guys think? Oh, by the way, Coach Tang called Tylor Perry the best three-point shooter in the country. Nigel Pack must have heard that, because yesterday he sunk 7 threes, and most of them were about 5-6 feet beyond the 3-point line.
On a side note, I think we're seeing that Nigel Pack, now that he's not really having to split those duties with it's more like kind of his show, and he doesn't have Wong and Miller there, and they're all kind of in that rotation. And I think he's going to be even better this year, because now it's kind of his show to run. But I definitely am buying Trey Alexander in terms of the size, the production. He's stuffing the stat sheet. I haven't seen Creighton play. I know collectively we were pretty high on them last year. Man,
they are
on
just
the show.
red hot on the offensive end.
And I know you lose Kaluma, you lose Nembhard, but Alexander's stepping up. I know Shireman just had a big game. Kalkbrenner is, if you really don't like Kalkbrenner, he's still at worst a top 5 center in the country.
Oh,
if you
sure.
Really, that's about to say, if you hate him, you're I don't like this guy. You can't really keep him out of the top 5. So they're playing really well, and he just kind of fits the archetype a little bit better, the size and I think a 5'11" guard. I haven't seen Kansas State play, but just kind of looking at Perry's box score, he's kind of totally filling that Noel role of not super efficient, but hitting big shots, playmaking for others. I will give him this. He's been really good about not turning the ball over, which is always a big plus, especially for small guards. It's man, if you're not efficient and you give up the ball a lot, there's problems. But if I had to pick, Trey Alexander, 100% buying. Tylor Perry is more of I'll buy for the college game, but I don't know, similar to Noel, I just don't know if the NBA is going to be a 100% fit.
Yeah, I mean,
he's probably 5'10", and he's shooting 40% from the field, and like that's probably the cap is going to be 40 to 42% for this year. And I don't know. I think physically there's just too many questions for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. With Perry, it's like you have to be an elite passer if you're running at that size, and he's a good passer, but not quite at that next level.
And this is the first year he's really shared the ball.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I'm with you on Trey Alexander. He still hasn't missed a free throw this year. That's impressive. Like 4 games running full speed, like that. Nobody does that. Like, and he's been up over 80% the past 2 seasons. You know, he'll come back down to earth a little bit, but his shooting numbers are just insane at the moment. Like, how could you not like that guy at the next level?
Right.
You know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And this year without Nebhard, he's averaging over 6 assists per game.
And he's not really. I mean, he had the 5 turnovers against Iowa, but he's taking care of the ball pretty well. I mean, even if you have 5 turnovers, he had 9 assists in that game, so you're like, it's still almost 2-1 with 5 turnovers, and he's chipping in 23, 24 points a night. You're like,
and over 7 rebounds right now. That'll probably come down to earth too. But here's the thing: I think that Alexander, late first round pick, early second round pick at worst. Tylor Perry, I don't think I'm selling there. I'm buying Alexander. I'm selling Perry just because of the size. You know,
agree.
You know, it's just it's like Cam said, you just don't see many guys.
You have to be an elite shooter or an elite passer, and I think
I think you have to be both. I think you have to be both. You know, because I think Cam hit
throw in too. You got to be an elite athlete,
and I think he's okay in all those categories. Like good to okay in all those categories.
That's a very good point. All right. So we're going to talk about another guy. Now we're getting into the who's cold list. And we're going to start off with a guy we just interviewed a couple weeks ago, Coleman Hawkins of Illinois. Coleman, by the way, missed Illinois' last game due to an injury, but he is off to a very cold start. I'll just give you an example. I've seen 2 of their games, but he's shooting 14% from 3. Only 31% from the field for a guy who's like 6'10". Now he's chipping in other ways, like over 6 rebounds a game, over 3 assists per game, over 1.3 blocks per game. But the shooting numbers are very concerning. I think what got Coleman invited to the NBA draft combine last year was his ability to contribute in so many different ways, to be a good rebounder, be a good shot blocker, be a good passer. But right now the shooting numbers are just dreadful, and Illinois really has looked out of sync on offense. And Coleman told me on this show, we're gonna be running a different offense this year, and maybe we're just experiencing growing pains, or maybe that knee injury that kept him out last game, maybe that's been bothering him longer than we know. You know, maybe it bothered him the first 3 games. So, any thoughts on Coleman? Are we buying or selling here?
I mean, Hawkins is a tough prospect because he's kind of one of those guys that shows flashes and stretches of like elite play, but really when you like look at his game across a season, none of his numbers are gonna blow you away.
No.
Like, you know, we talked about like how good a passer he is. It's like he averaged like 3 assists, like.
But he also led his team.
Consistent.
He led his team as a 6'10" guy.
Well, yeah,
when you're 6'10", I can take
guy,
3.
Yeah, but like you're the only guy moving it, and that's like it's gonna shine, it's gonna pop if you're the only guy that's passing the ball.
Yeah,
3 assists as your team leader should never happen. But I mean, with Hawkins, it's like I love some of the things that, and I like the way that he approaches the game. Like this is like the NBA vocab word of the year, but he's a connector. I love that style of play, but when you're looking at a guy for the NBA level, there's only so many of those jobs available. And if you can't contribute as like an elite rebounder, you're not shooting the ball all that well. You don't have one offensive skill that jumps off the page. I don't think he's an elite finisher either. it's hard to get looks in the draft. I'm kind of selling my stock on Hawkins. I feel like he needed to come out the gate kind of hot and ride that wave through the rest of the year so he could ride out some of his rough stretches. But he could be an awesome overseas player. That's kind of what the niche I'm looking at for him. But we'll see. It's a long season. He might pull it together. Who knows? He could have like a 38% shooting. Yeah. He could have a 38% shooting streak, in him, but we got to see.
Right. Drew?
Yeah, I'm going to I haven't seen him play this year, but just looking at the numbers, I'm going to agree with Cam. Like, even with the bad shooting, he's literally averaging the same amount of rebounds right now. And it's 3 games, but as he was last year, almost the same amount of assists, the same amount of blocks. Like, I think there's an element of I think we've just he's probably kind of peaked. We've seen last year is probably a good representation of what he's going to be, even if he rights the ship this year. I don't know if there's some massive leap in there where we're going to see him get hot and get up to 15 points a game and start pulling down 8-9 boards and start I just don't think that's there. So I don't think he's a 31% shooter. He's a better player than that. So I can see that getting righted and getting back maybe the mid 40s when it's all said and done. But does he really have that much more in the chamber to make some massive push? If he wasn't, he didn't really have it last year.
He is a young senior. He's not even 22 yet. So
for sure.
I'm gonna buy. I'm gonna buy low here, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because first of all, I don't know if he's been healthy all year. That's number one. Number two is when I've seen this Illinois team play, everything looks out of sync. So I'm hoping that gets corrected. By the way, I think if they fall seriously short this year, or they get in the NCAAs and lose in the first round again, I think Brad Underwood's job is going to be in jeopardy. But anyway, I'm selling. I'm buying low here because he really is off to a dreadful start. All right, Bryce Hopkins, boy. I watched him the other night against Kansas State, and I don't know. I lost count of how many bunnies he missed. And this is a big, strong dude. Bryce, we've had rated around, that second round territory. But boy, he really wanted to run it back this year. And he's shooting 31% from the field, only 14% from deep. He is pulling in 8.4 rebounds. But turnovers 3.6 per game. I can't put my finger on it, but I saw him, like I said, I saw him miss so many shots against Kansas State, and that was a game they could have won. If he would have just hit just a few of those shots.
Yeah, I'm selling on Bryce Hopkins. I don't think that's shocking given his past couple of years of play. There's a long history of just extremely solid, good to incredible Kentucky guards and former Kentucky guards. And if there's one thing true about Calipari, he's not going to move on from a guy unless he knows for sure it's not going to happen. To me, it's like.
But this is a guy who was in the running for Big East Player of the Year last year.
Yeah, but even looking at his numbers last year, I'm just like, he's never been a great assisted turnover guy. He's never been a great shooter.
He relies a lot on strength as opposed to speed.
I worry about. I don't feel like the sort of strength guard game really translates in the NBA.
No.
At least not as a scorer, which is really the way that his game is fashioned, and that's
right.
What he does, for his team. And if you're not even doing that efficiently, I don't know, what your role is at the next level. So I'm selling on Bryce Hopkins pretty hard.
I hear you. What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Cam on this one. I'm not super familiar with Bryce's game. Don't really watch a lot of Providence basketball, if I'm being honest. But from what I have seen and what just looking through this, selling on the NBA future, I will buy that he will be better. I think he's going to be better this year. I think you just look at his resume and you're like, okay, he's better than 30% from the floor. He's better than 14% from three. But is he, like I said, standing I don't know if there's some quantum leap that he's going to make, some big skill development that you're going to go, oh, I didn't see that. That's going to translate. He's not a great 3-point shooter. He's not a great passer. I mean, you like the size at 6'7", 220 is what he's listed at. But,
and the ability to grab 8 boards is nice.
But, absolutely. But if you were to ask an NBA team, would you rather your guard grab 8 boards or shoot close to 40, shoot a 40% clip from 3 or hand out 8-9 assists a night? No brainer. They're give me the passing, give me the shooting. The rebounding is kind of an added bonus, but nobody's banking on their next lead guard to be a great rebounder. So I'll buy that he's going to get the ship righted the rest of this season. I think he's a better player than what he's putting out, at least offensively. But I will sell that I don't know if there's an NBA spot for him. I don't know if he's gonna go make some impact and wow some scouts with some newfound offensive abilities. So buy that he has a better season as we progress at the collegiate level. Sell that he's gonna skyrocket up NBA radars or get on the NBA boards again.
Yeah, I think if he gets back to last year's level, maybe he's the 59th pick in the NBA draft, maybe. But I'm selling.
Yeah,
I'm selling.
Sure.
I just think his game relies too much on power, not enough on athleticism and shooting. So, all right, last guy, no problem with athleticism. That's Terrance Arceneaux of Houston. However, this is a guy I thought very much like Wooga Poplar has exploded. I thought this guy might do the same for Houston, and he hasn't. In fact, he's only playing about 6 more minutes per game than he did last year. He's up to 19.8, so we'll say 20 minutes per game. Shooting 45% from the field, 31% from deep, only 62% from the free throw line. We know he's a great athlete, and he's only a sophomore. So are we buying? And he's a 6'6" wing, too. And still 20 years old. So are we buying or selling Terrance Arceneaux?
As somebody who watched him play in high school and watched a lot of Houston last year, I'm going to buy for the long game. I think this is going to be a guy in this Houston system. He's going to stick around for 4 years, maybe even a 5th, and it might start to click then where you're going to see the athleticism translate on the defensive end, most importantly. And he's going to maybe be the type of guy that starts finding ways to get offense. I don't think he's the type of guy you're ever going to start running sets for and you're going to look for shots for, but he's the type of guy that can just find buckets with putbacks, running in transition, bully ball. But I do think I'm going to buy, hope that this is something that pays off 2 years down the line. I don't think it's happening this year again, but I do think that there's a lot of physical tools there, and the way that this Houston team plays, their defense, their physicality, as he continues to hone that, he's going to be able to make a mark there. And this is a guy that's a junior, senior, is going to eventually start to click, and people are going to go, okay, this guy's a defensive stopper who can find his way to 6 to 12 points a night just on kind of the hustle plays, a better rebounder. So I'm going to buy, not that he's going to be some lottery pick, and I'm not buying for this year, but I'm buying in the long term that the tools are there. He's in the right system for him to have those tools be used properly. They're going to look to unleash him as a defensive player first and foremost, and then figure out the offensive stuff, which I think is the right move. So long-term buy, kind of like a buy and hold on this, on Arceneaux.
All right. What do you think, Cam?
I mean, he's got the frame for sure. He's a very lanky 6'6". Just watch him play. But I just, with these second year guys, especially, I mean, he's gonna be 20. He's 20 right now. Actually, he's gonna be 21 by the end of the year, I believe. I want to see that you get those minutes out the gate. I want to know, you're coming in the year, you had this whole.
Now he actually just turned. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt.
He just turned 20.
Turned 20 a few days ago.
Oh, okay. No, but my thing is you get through that freshman season. He played 34 games for them. Pretty limited minutes. He was only about 14 minutes a game. he in the games he's played this year, like he's up to about 20 minutes, just short, but he's only started 2 games.
Mhm.
And to me, that just shows like either A, your coach really, really wants, your scoring off the bench. I don't see that as the case with Arceneaux. Like, but to me, it's really like you didn't compete hard enough for the job. Like,
Perhaps.
20 minutes a game isn't a whole lot for a second year that's as highly touted as Arceneaux was. So we'll see. I think it's a smart hold. Maybe throughout the year he starts to earn back some of those minutes. But if you're an NBA prospect and you have the frame, you have the talent that Arceneaux has, and you're in a program like Houston, I want to see that you can earn that starting job, get those 30 minutes a game at the very least.
Right. Now, the guy who's starting in front of him is 5th-year guy Damian Dunn from Temple. I believe by the by the end of the season, Arceneaux will be starting ahead of Dunn. I think Dunn is a mediocre player, and I think he's getting the start based out of respect, and he's done pretty well. But I think Arceneaux brings an element to this offense that nobody else on this team really can. Not even LJ Cryer, and that's, nobody's going to beat him down the court. He's fastest guy. He's the best jumper on the team. And so I am definitely buying low, but I don't recommend he come out in this draft. No. If you're only playing 20 minutes a game, it's like you said, that says something. That means something. And whether Damian Dunn's there or not, but here's the number I like about him, and here's why I'm selling. And I know you guys hate my numbers, but his per last year, 12.4. His per this year, 21.5. That's what I always want to see, because per is an overall measurement of, how well you're doing. And you might say the number is, crap or whatever, but it's not crap when you're looking at someone's per year in and year out. If the per keeps on going up, that means you're doing better. And so he's almost doubled his per. So that's why I like it, but don't come out this year, Terrance. Wait till next year when you're playing, 27, 28 minutes per game, and, throwing up, 12 points or 13 points a night. Yeah. All right. So now that's the end of the college. Oh, no, wait. Oh, shit. We have our tournament picks. So we'll try to be brief today with these. Usually we're going to do picks of the week, but here we're picking the whole shoot and bang. We're picking the tournaments. So the holiday tournaments. So I think we have a dozen of them, but we'll roll these off. Tonight we have the Empire Classic, which is UConn in the Garden versus Texas. So UConn yesterday, they pretty much handled Indiana. Texas won with less than a second to go in the game over Louisville. Who you got, Drew? UConn or Texas?
Give me the Huskies.
All righty. Cam?
Yeah, UConn's an absolute layup. They hammered Indiana by 20.
Yeah. Texas really seems, here's the thing. The most impressive performer on the team, as I said at the top of the show, Caden Shedrick, he's not going to be able to do that against Donovan Clingan. And Shedrick's playing with a sore shoulder that's been hampering him way back to the summer. And a couple times yesterday he got banged and he was like holding his arm. And it's a real touch and go situation. But the reason why they have to play him so much is because their other option, Dylan Dessou, is still out from the foot injury that he suffered last year. So I got to go with UConn. I think Clingan shuts down Shedrick. All right, then we have the Sunshine Slam. And gentlemen, as you can see, I have it broken down so you can see who the eventual matchups will be. This is Florida State. I'm going to just read off the opening round. So our choices are Florida State, who plays UNLV, or Colorado, who plays Richmond? Florida State, by the way, they got throttled big time by Florida. In Florida. Florida was home. It was in Gainesville. So who you got, Drew?
For the overall tournament winner, give me Colorado. I'll ride with the Silva.
Yep, I'm going Colorado as well.
Oh boy, are we boring? So am I. Yeah, Colorado
I love the Williams kid, man.
Yeah. He started off slow. I think he was banged up or something too, but he's come on the last couple of games, looked really good. So he's Jalen's younger brother, right? Jalen Williams of OK State, not the center. He's the guy we interviewed.
No, he's J-Dub's little brother.
Right. And so he's looked really good, or he's starting to look good. He started off slow, but anyway, we're all going with Colorado. Fort Myers tip-off. We got Wisconsin versus Virginia and West Virginia versus SMU. Who you got, Drew?
I like Reese Beekman. They're the only team that I've really got a chance to see play. I think I'm going to go with Virginia here.
All righty. Cam?
I might keep it go. I think I'm going to keep it boring. I might go Virginia as well.
So am I. And, Wisconsin's already dropped too.
Yeah.
They're one of the reasons why I'm a little down on the Big Ten, because I thought Wisconsin would be top 5 team in the Big Ten this year, but it's not looking that way. By the way, SMU is going to beat West Virginia. Mark it down, betting community. All right, so now we move on to the SoCal Challenge, and you guys might not be too familiar with the teams on this list, but the 2 teams, 3 of the 4 teams are undefeated, and it's not the one you're familiar with. Bradley plays Tulane, both undefeated. Cal plays UTEP, and UTEP has a win over somebody good. I forget who, though. But, yeah, UTEP is also undefeated. Cal's the only team here with a loss.
This is actually probably going to be the hardest one. The only team I've seen here play at all, and I'm familiar with, is Cal, and they have been a disappointment. I really thought they would kind of help right the ship and turn it around. I'm going to defer. Rich, you can lead on this one, because I'm not familiar with UTEP, Bradley, or Tulane, and I'm not really comfortable picking Cal. So.
Well, I think the winner of this tournament is going to be the winner of the Bradley-Tulane game.
Okay.
And I just think Tulane they have 3 players that are fairly high on our draft board, and Kevin Cross, their center, he's actually a really, really good passer. I got to go with Tulane. That's a team I thought might finish as high as 3rd in the American. So I'm going with Tulane. Are you guys going to defer to me on this?
I will defer on this one.
How about you, Cam?
Give me UTEP just for the fun of it.
Wow. Going with the Miners. The only time I ever saw the Miners play live, there was a guy named Tim Hardaway was their point guard. Not Tim Hardaway Jr., Tim Hardaway. All right. So we have the Maui Invitational. Oh my goodness, this is stacked. It's stacked. It's crazy.
Field.
It's crazy. 4 of these teams were in our preseason top 10. 1 was in our top 20, and another one was in our top 25. So the field goes like this. This is how it opens. 8 teams. Tennessee plays Syracuse. The winner of that will play the winner of Purdue Gonzaga. And on the other side of the bracket, we have Kansas versus D2 Chaminade and UCLA versus Marquette. Cam's picking Chaminade. I could see it on his face.
Yeah, obviously. Why wouldn't I? God, whoever paid Chaminade to join this tournament.
They
every other year.
They used to be in it every year, and then Yeah.
How did they finesse that? Anyway, spoiler alert, I'm taking Tennessee.
All right.
Like historically, Tennessee does very well in this tournament whenever they played in it. It's steep top competition, but I think Tennessee's legit this year. I'll go with the Vols.
Oh man, it pains me not to pick my guys, but this is an absolutely loaded field, so there's no shame. As long as we don't lose to Chaminade, I'm okay with it. However this plays out, I'm going to take Kansas. I know Purdue's riding hot, but I just think that Hunter Dickinson is playing with that patented chip on his shoulder, and it might be bigger than ever. I think he's good enough to go right at Zach Edey. I'm not really an Edey guy, and I think they're the best team in college basketball to me. They're playing at a high level. They've got all the pieces you want. So I'm taking Kansas. But this is one of those ones where I think there's literally 7 teams that could win this thing. And who knows, maybe Chaminade goes on the greatest tournament run we've ever seen and somehow pulls it out.
Chaminade back in the late 70s, early 80s, beat the number 1 team in the country with 7'4" Ralph Sampson was on the team. That's the only time I ever remember them having any success. But I don't even think they won the tournament that year. I think they just beat Ralph Sampson's team and then proceeded to lose the next 2 games. All right. Anybody with any sense would take Kansas because they have a bye, basically. Okay. And then from there on out, they already see the thing about these tournaments is the first game is so important because the first game determines whether you go into the losers bracket or the winners bracket. Kansas is already in the winners bracket, but I'm picking Tennessee. And the reason is because I have Tennessee in my Final Four, and I picked them over. I think they're better than Kansas. And yeah. By the way, shout out to KJ Adams. His mother passed away this weekend. He will not play against Chaminade. He is traveling with the team. He got to fly home, emergency fly home to say goodbye to his mom, but she has passed. And so very sad note there for him. So I guess maybe my heart kind of tugs for them to win, but based on who I think's the best team, I think it's Tennessee, but Kansas certainly has the easiest path. All right, so to the AccuShore Classic, which Drew will obviously be attending. It's in Palm Springs. It's not really a tournament. It's just a special game played at a neutral site, and that's Michigan State with another tough game. Izzo's doing the same thing he did last year, picking every tough opponent he can, and he's playing Arizona, a team that's already won at Duke. Who you have, Drew?
I've always got love for Izzo. Always. The guy is just a wizard. I've seen Arizona just beat Duke in Duke. Arizona just beat Michigan State somewhat handily. I'm going to stick to what's left of my Pac-12. I'm going to take Arizona, but I think this is actually a battle, and I think this is the type of game that pays dividends for Michigan State down the line. Obviously, they are super talented. They've been a bit of a disappointment, and despite all that, they're still 3-2, still have a winning record, and it took an overtime loss to James Madison to really get them there. Like, outside of that, there's no shame in losing to Duke. So I'm going to take Arizona, but I do think that this one go either way, and I think Michigan State, I think people are ringing those alarm bells, I feel like. No need to. This team, come March, is going to do what they always do, but I'm going to take Arizona for this game.
Cam?
Yeah, I think it's the right pick. Although it does feel like the classic sort of Arizona letdown game.
Yes.
You go and win a game in Cameron Indoor and then turn around and blow one to Michigan State. I love the talent on the Michigan State team. I wouldn't be shocked to see them pull one out, but in the long run, Izzo schedules these games to get them some experience early.
Right.
Win or lose, doesn't matter.
They started off really slow last year because they had a killer schedule, and they were the only team in the Big Ten to make it to the Sweet 16. So Don't panic, Michigan State fans, but I'm going with Arizona.
What they should do is show up in what is it? Harvard? What would they lose to? Princeton? Show up in Princeton uniforms, and then Arizona might just have PTSD. Game's over. Call it a wrap.
Princeton.
Yeah, I think this.
Princeton, by the way, 4-0 right now with some good wins already.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to the NIT season tip-off, which is different from the NIT thing they're doing. The Empire Classic, but anyway, it's Baylor versus Oregon State and Florida versus Pittsburgh. I know Pittsburgh's undefeated and look good. I think Florida's undefeated. We just saw them roll over Florida State, and of course, we've seen Baylor look really good too. What do you got, Drew?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Baylor. I haven't really seen too many of these teams play. I followed the Florida game through like a game cast just because I always am curious to see what Golden's doing over there and how the translation from USF has gone over at Florida. But I'm gonna take Baylor. I think Baylor's. I mean, right now they're 4-0. They're playing well. I think if I'm not mistaken, they've got 4 guys all in double figures.
Yeah.
You know, they haven't had the schedule to start. They haven't had like a ring, but they've handled their business through and through. So I'm gonna go with Baylor. I think they have enough weapons, enough guys playing well right now that there's a variety of ways they can beat you. And I just think that track record wise, they've been a solid program the last couple of years. I think they keep it rolling here. I'm going to take Baylor.
Cam?
Yep, I'm going Baylor as well. I've found my big man for the year, my one true love, Yves Missi.
I was about to bring him up.
My oversized centers, I can't quit them. You know me, Rich. I really like Missi. And then, I love what Jacoby Walter has shown this season so far. Yeah. Just bringing the spacing that this team really needs. And I love to see a guard that can play off the ball. It's one of my absolute favorite things to watch in basketball. I think this team is legit. They've got size up and down the roster. Actually looking at it, they've only got like 2 dudes under 6'4" on the whole roster. So
they have really good guards. They have really good guards again.
Really good guards. Yeah.
And then too, like one of the guys under 6'4" is Ray J. Dennis. So like solid, just solid.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think Baylor takes this one, but Florida looked way better than I thought they were going to. At the start of the season, they're definitely a threat to take it.
Yeah, I think the winner, I won't say that Florida's going to beat Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh looks good too. I think that's going to be a terrific game, Florida-Pittsburgh. And I think the winner of that game will give Baylor all he wants. But you're right about Yves Missi. Oh, my goodness, that guy athletic. I love him. All right, so now we move on to the is it Ratty? Ratty or Rady? I think it's Ratty.
I think it's Ratty.
Children's Invitational, which is Oklahoma versus Iowa, and the winner of that will play the winner of Seton Hall USC. Oklahoma, by the way, they haven't really played anybody, but they are undefeated. And if you look at the top teams in the country for net rating, which is the difference between offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency, they're right up there with the top teams. So there you go.
I'm gonna take USC. I'm gonna stick with my pack team. I mean, Boogie's coming back. Collier's been legit. I haven't seen him play a full game, but I've gone and I've watched the highlights. He's been hooping. The turnovers are a little bit problematic, but I think with Boogie back, hopefully they can kind of rein him back in. But I think this team's talented, and they're fun to watch. I mean, they got 2 guards who just fill it up. So I'm gonna say that USC takes this one. I think between Boogie and Colliers, they get enough scoring punch. One of those guys is gonna constantly keep them in the game, and if they both get going, they're tough to stop. So I'm gonna take the Trojans.
What do you think, Cam?
It's tough. Isaiah Collier has been a beast this year. It's interesting. This is a hard call for me, just because I feel like USC doesn't have a whole lot of answers on the interior, and I feel like that always kind of makes me look sideways at your team in tournament play. I can't decide. You guys are gonna hate me, but I kind of like Iowa as a sleeper here.
Wow.
They played Creighton very, very tough on Tuesday. They put up 84 on Creighton. Creighton had 92. Like Iowa is kind of one of those random teams that's always a threat to just throw up some points on you. They get hot in tournament play. I think I like them. I like them sneaking one in.
Iowa has a transfer center named Ben Creaky, who could have been on our list of who's hot. This guy loves to shoot 15-footers from the elbow, and he makes 95% of them. He's not very athletic, but man, he is a great mid-range shooter and not a bad rebounder, blocks some shots for you. But I think USC's just got too much. I'm really high on USC, especially once they get Bronny James. I think this is a potential Final Four team. So, yeah. All right, this next one, the Vegas Showdown. Wow, this one, I would say BYU based on the fact that they're undefeated, and Caleb and I, predicted them as a dark horse to make the tournament. But here I got some injury news for you before we go into this. Their center, Ali Khalifa, he might not play, and Dawson Baker, one of their better outside shooters, a transfer from, I believe, Cal State Fullerton. He's a good, really good, spot up shooter. He won't play. He's going to be out for a few weeks. So I think, I think anybody could win this tournament. Also, Vandy's been banged up, but they're still winning. Any one of these four teams could win it. I suppose the team I like the least is Vanderbilt, just because they've been missing two of their three best players, and they've been winning anyway. But against I think they're 3-1, but it's really late schedule. So what do you think, Drew?
I was going to take BYU, but the injury news. Man,
well, I think if Khalifa plays, they'll be fine. But if he's out too, that hurts.
Yeah, no starting center, one of your best shooters. I mean, they've manufactured wins. They're 4-0, and I think Khalifa's only played in 2 games this year, if I'm not mistaken. I think he has missed time.
Yeah, well, I know he missed the game this weekend.
Yeah, but outside of that San Diego State game, they haven't really been tested, so you can probably survive. This is going to be. I'm going to pray he plays. I'm going to go BYU. If he plays, I think the Mormons are playing well. I'm going to go BYU. But this is another one. I'm not familiar with Vanderbilt at all, but I was very torn between BYU, ASU, or NC State. I think this is anybody's game. I'll take BYU.
Yeah, give me the Kolob Killers. I'll take BYU.
I don't know what that means, but
you got to research your Mormon life. Get a pamphlet, Rich.
God forgive us. Church of Latter-day Saints, send your fan mail to admin@hoopsprospects.com and put in the subject either Cam's name or Drew's name, but not my name. I too am going with the Latter-day Saints because I said this is a toss-up tourney, but we interviewed Fuz Traore, who I think is one of the best players in the country. Nobody knows. And so I'm going to go with the Cougars and hope that Khalifa plays. All right, so now we have the Battle of Atlantis. This is another really good tournament. We have North Carolina versus Northern Iowa, and they play the winner of Villanova, Texas Tech. And then on the other side, we have Michigan and Memphis, and Arkansas and Stanford. And, of course, we're not sure about Stanford's health. Every other team here should be healthy. Who you got, Drew?
Definitely not taking Stanford. I can assure you of that. Not really sold on Nova. Not a Neptune guy. Haven't seen Texas Tech play yet.
This is a tough
This one's tough.
Memphis hasn't really played anyone yet. Basically,
Yeah.
they've
Well,
beaten Missouri
Yeah,
twice,
they beat Missouri.
basically,
Yeah.
because they also beat Jackson State. So,
This one's tough. This is a dart throw. Give me the Tar Heels. I'll take North Carolina. I'm not really confident on that pick at all. I do think that Michigan, Memphis, Villanova, Texas Tech can all be valid. I don't think Northern Iowa and Stanford are not winning this thing. I'm pretty confident saying that. But everyone else, either because of how tight everyone's been or because I'm not familiar. So I'll take North Carolina, but no confidence whatsoever, to be completely honest.
What do you got, Cam?
I'm gonna go Memphis. I'll keep it close to home. Just give a little favoritism to the Tennessee boys.
Yeah, I could see that. They would probably be my second choice. I don't know. The reason why I avoided that side is because, it seems like North Carolina, kind of like Kansas, kind of has the nice opening round matchup. So that's why I'm going with the Tar Heels. They're also, the only one of these teams that they haven't played anybody, of course, but they don't have a bad loss yet, unlike just about everybody else here. So now the Emerald Classic has some nice teams. Now, Oregon, as I noted, had been playing pretty well, even without three of their guys, including Dante. Now, Nate Biddle, their other really, really, really good big guy, is at least not going to play today, which means he won't play against Santa Clara, a team that Drew is familiar with. And on the other side, we have Alabama and Ohio State.
There's a devil on my shoulder on this one. Woo. There's a little thing. Do it. Take them. Do it. Screw it. Give me the Broncos, man. I'm gonna ride with Santa Clara, the WCC. This is definitely this is a hometown pick. I think this team's actually legit. I think they're the second best team in the WCC, not St. Mary's. I'm willing to go that far on a limb. They beat, by all accounts, UCLA. A closed door scrimmage means nothing, but I think this team is talented. I think they're the second best team in the conference. And if Oregon's not 100%, I think Santa Clara can definitely get them. And then it's basketball. Anything can happen. Any given Sunday. I'll take the Broncos.
I love Adama Ball, who plays for the Broncos, transferred from Arizona. Yeah. Drew and I were talking about Adama before the show. So who you got, Cam?
Grant Nelson's my spirit animal, Rich. I got a confession. Not only is he making his best Drew Timme impersonation with the addition of a stash into his style, but he's killing it this year. He's a beast. The jumper's looking a little bit improved, from his North Dakota State days. I'm going Bama.
All right. I'm going to go with Ohio State. I think that's the winner of that game wins it, I think. And I agree, Alabama's looking good, especially Nelson. But I think Ohio State is going to be interesting. But I think Ohio State's going to have too much inside for Bama. We talked, Caleb and I, we talked about it during our SEC preview. Or maybe it was with Caleb. I don't know where. I mentioned it in one of the recent shows. I'm worried about Alabama's ability to play defense and to stop people on the inside. I think Ohio State abuses them on the inside. And they come away. It's going to be close. But I like Ohio State.
Now, Rich, you got to keep in mind, Caleb is one of those degenerate human beings who is an Ohio State football fan and a Duke basketball fan.
Oh, God.
So you got to watch out for him when the Buckeyes are involved.
Yeah, that's a dangerous game.
No, but at the time, we were talking about Grant Nelson. And I was saying, I really like the way Alabama's offense looks, but I don't so much like him being your 5 and on a defensive perspective. So, all right, one last event, the ESPN Events Invitational. We have Penn State versus Texas A&M. They will face the winner of Florida Atlantic and Butler. And on the other side of the bracket, we have Iowa State, undefeated, versus VCU, and Boise State versus Virginia Tech. Pretty good field.
Pretty good field. I'm gonna take the Owls. I'm gonna take Florida. I'm gonna take Florida Atlantic. I think everyone's gonna look at that game that they lost to Bryant. Look, I'm telling you, I think that game is more fluky than it is bad basketball. This team still has a lot of talent.
I also think Bryant's better than people know too.
Yeah, didn't their head coach on the sideline? Didn't their head coach just step down recently?
Bryant's head coach? No, not that I'm aware of.
Maybe I could have sworn there was a team.
I don't know if you guys remember Earl Timberlake, but he was like a top 40 recruit. Started off at Memphis.
Yeah,
didn't get a lot of playing time, and he's been at Bryant ever since. He's really starting to come into his own now.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Florida Atlantic. I think this is a solid field, but I think that this is a team that has a lot of talent from the team that made a run last year. I think one bad game where, again, the shooting numbers were so egregiously low compared to what they have been relative to the talent. I think they bounced back in a big way. But I think this is a solid field. But I'm going to take the Owls.
What do you think, Cam?
Give me Iowa State.
Oh, you devil, you! I thought for sure you'd go with A&M. I
can't do it. I can't do it with A&M.
I, too, am going with Iowa State, and I'll tell you why. Last year, they were one of the best defensive teams in the country, but they could really stink it up offensively. This year, they have some new guys, some freshmen, and they can score this year. I like Iowa State. Iowa State is, I think, might just challenge for the Big 12 title. They're probably going to finish fourth, but they're going to be there. And so I like Iowa State in this. I thought for sure one of you guys would go with A&M. Surprised me there. Drew's logic, though, is certainly sound. This is the team that's returning everybody from a team that went to the Final Four last year, and I don't think the Bryant game is any indication of how good they are by any means. All right, good job, gentlemen. Now we're going to move on to our NBA notebook, and basically just going to kind of get caught up what's been going on. We haven't talked about the NBA in a while, so let's start off by just saying, what team or teams you could pick two if you want. Start off with you, Cam. What teams have surprised you the most in a positive way? In a positive way.
You're gonna like this one, Rich. The Sixers. I have never really been a Tyrese Maxey believer, but what he's done, with more of a ball dominant role has really impressed me. And just like seeing Tobias Harris kind of unleashed again, and kind of finally, being released from the corner and having the ball in his hands a little bit more. I think offensively, they're so much better than they were with James Harden. And defensively, too, I think bringing in Covington, Batum is going to work out for them in the long run. I'm pleasantly surprised by the Sixers this year.
All right. That was going to be my pick, but I'll come up with something different. What about you, Drew?
Yeah, the Sixers were going to be my pick in terms of just overall, how do they look as a potential championship contender this early in the season? They were playing really good basketball. I'm going to take OKC. I know they're the hot pick right now, probably just across the NBA. They just came back and beat my Warriors in OT. This will tie into the Rookie of the Year conversation we have later, but they're young, they're fun, and it's nice to see a team that chose to rebuild kind of the right way and really do their homework, have it pay off. I mean, they're at 10 wins. They're riding a 5-game win streak. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is asserting himself, and he's going to be one of those guys that just because of his background and where he's come from and where he plays, he's going to be criminally underrated. But how many guards in the league right now would you take over him? I cannot name that many at all, really, outside of maybe a handful of future Hall of Famers. So, yeah, I think they've just been super fun to watch. But I also was going to say Philly. I didn't think that. I mean, they're right there. You could make an argument that they are the second best team in the league right now behind Boston. And it's a 1-game difference. So I'll take OKC, though, just to mix it up.
All right. I thought Cam was going to take the Orlando Magic because he was
I'm not surprised by the Magic. That's the thing.
Well, we were doing our Fearless Forecast episode. You and Naz were pretty high on the Magic. I wasn't. So they're certainly a surprise for me. And of course, the Sixers are finally looking like a basketball team. I'm going to go with the Timberwolves. This team is playing excellent defense. I mean, when you think about it, McDaniels is one of the better, on-ball defenders in the league. Anthony Edwards is playing a two-way game now. We already knew he was already trending to be one of the best offensive players, but he's trending to be one of the best all-around players. That's not something we saw from him in college, by the way.
No.
And of course, you have the rim protection of Gobert. You can make arguments that, we could discuss Rudy Gobert all night, but the bottom line is rim protection does come in handy. So yeah, I'm really surprised. Timberwolves right now have the best record in winning percentage, I should say, in the West. So kudos to them. They're really surprising me. I thought this team would be around 500 and be on the, in that play-in game area, but they're doing better than that. So good on them. All right, so let's turn it around. And here, I think there's a lot of candidates, especially in the West. What team has been the most disappointing? So we'll switch it up. I'll let Drew go start.
As much as I want to say my freaking Warriors for losing 6 in a row and blowing an 18-point lead at home to a young team, I'm going to say I think the Clippers have been an absolute disappointment this year. You've got 11 games of Paul George, 11 games of Kawhi Leonard, 11 games of Norman Powell, 11 games of Westbrook, Zubac. Like, all your big key guys have all played, and the big thing that everyone has said with this team over the years is, oh, well, if only they were healthy, if only they played all their guys. Like, you got to wait and see. You got to wait and see. We've been kind of sold this image of, like, when this team has everybody on the court, who has more talent? And they have been a disappointment. It took a James Harden, like, crazy buzzer beater for them to pick up a win. I mean, individually, you look at the stat lines and you're like, well, Kawhi and Paul George are both over 21 a game, and Harden and Westbrook are both in double digits, and Powell, Highland, and Zubac are all in double digits, and they're still not winning. I just am of the belief at this point that I don't think Kawhi Leonard is able to lead a team if he can stay healthy. I don't think he has the personality for it. There's so much clashing. I mean, do we really think James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, like all those attitudes, egos, and personas meld together well enough to be a championship caliber ecosystem? I don't know. You would assume, again, just based on talent with other teams kind of underperforming, that they'd be better, but they've been the biggest disappointment to me. I'm going to take the Warriors recently. They just, have not been able to figure it out, and Klay Thompson and Wiggins have been atrocious. I mean, the two of them look like, as much as I love Klay Thompson, I think he might be on a bus out of town, and Wiggins is not really giving me much. He finally has a good game and still gives up a 3 to Chet Holmgren to send it to overtime. We end up losing. So I'm going to say Clippers, but I think the Warriors are not far behind right now. They're trending down as well after a hot start.
Cam?
Yeah, looking at, my version of the Fearless Forecast, I think the two teams that really stand out, I think you have to mention the Grizzlies. I mean, granted, they've had an insane injury list so far this season.
Yeah, I think they're playing Bismarck Biyombo at point guard now.
Yeah,
they will be.
The only reason I didn't pick them was because of injuries, but I do agree with Cam. Yeah. They have been atrocious. But
I think my real pick is the Cavs, though. I mean, we talked in the Fearless Forecast, Rich. Like, we felt like, they might not be the third best team in the East, but they would probably end the year with the third best record. Right now, they're sitting at 7-6. They've had some really, really strong games. The one that sticks out to me is they had a win against the Warriors, where Mobley just looked like an absolute beast on the inside. Jarrett Allen was dunking all over the small Warriors lineups. And honestly, like, that's kind of the way it looks for them. Like, if they come up against a small team, they look great. If they come up against a team that has comparative size, they don't play well. For some reason, they just can't win those matchups, between Allen and Mobley.
And that's what happened against the Knicks last year.
Yep. So I wanted to say that they were gonna, finally kind of break through and be that third best team. They have not been so far. I'm still seeing flashes, but they've got a lot of ground to make up in the East. The top is pulling away from them. If they want that top 4 seed, they got to turn it around in the next couple of weeks.
And Donovan Mitchell's going to miss some games. He's banged up. So, yeah. I was going to go in the West, and Drew took my 2 top candidates for the most disappointing, Clippers and Warriors. So, and so I'll go back to the East, and I will mention this team just because I was so bold to say that they might get into the play-in game rounds with the Pistons, and they have looked atrocious. Now, they too have been hit hard by injuries. But Cade Cunningham, some of us thought he might have I think some of us picked him as the most improved player. I didn't personally, but I thought about him, and has not been playing well. But again, team's been hit hard by injuries. So my pick is actually a team with the third best record in the East. I'm going to say the Milwaukee Bucks. And the reason I'm going to say is because they're no longer any good on defense. They're like the 25th, or not 25th. I think they're 21st in defensive efficiency right now. Teams look forward to playing to the Bucks right now if they're struggling offensively, so they can. I forget who they played the other night. It was a team that was like really, really struggling, and they put 65. It was Orlando. And Orlando put 65 points on them, or 75 points and a half. It was crazy. So losing Drew Holiday, and then starting guys like Michael Beasley. It's just I think the Bucks are clearly the third best team in the East right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if they lose in the first round of the playoffs again, like if they had to face a team like Miami or something like that. All right, so next topic. Where do you guys think Zach LaVine's headed? We thought we got rid of all the trade rumors with Harden and Dame, and now I can't turn my head for 2 seconds without another article coming out about where Zach LaVine's going. So just answer the question. Just tell me so I don't have to read these articles anymore. Where's Zach LaVine going, Cam?
I mean, Zach LaVine is like Brad Beal 2.0.
Right.
Like massive contract, absolutely huge. No winning history at all. A complete minus on defense. So, I mean, like realistically, the only teams that I feel like are going to be looking at him are teams that are, looking to be maybe a little bit more competitive, add some scoring, but teams that don't have a whole lot of money on their cap sheet, if anything, have some money to drop. It's tough. Like I would say the Lakers, but like to make the contracts work out, you get into a situation where you're giving up D'Angelo Russell plus Hachimura or Austin Reeves. I don't see them wanting to do that.
No.
I mean, the team I've been seeing is the Spurs. I don't know that they have the contract to even send out to acquire him. One team that I feel like could at least have the discussion would be OKC. I feel like they're a team that could use the extra scoring punch. Just another guy that doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands. I know LaVine really thrives in pick and roll offensively, but I think he's probably at his best as an off-ball mover. I can see them, take the Bertans contract and throw in a couple of picks. I feel like that would be a pretty favorable look. It's hard though. I mean, he's damn near 60 mil on a contract per year. So, I mean, it takes somebody that either really, really loves Zach LaVine or, just kind of has the money in the piggy bank to play with. And and there aren't many teams like that around the league.
What about Atlanta as a $20 million trade exception? Because that team seems like it's going nowhere again.
Yeah.
Like Trey Young.
But the problem is,
you have to.
Yeah, that's who you would have to move on from, and it's like ultimately that would be a win now move for a team that doesn't seem like they're ready to win anything, and a team that would have to make a massive style of play change to like incorporate him. And again, like has some of the same issues that they have with Trey Young, just a supreme scorer that can't defend anybody. Yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, OKC's a team I have circled as a possibility, and maybe the Raptors could convince themselves to like add another guy.
That's actually not a bad idea there.
I don't know. It's so hard to make the contracts work out for LaVine.
Right. So what do you think, Drew? Where do you think is a good place for Cam Zach LaVine to land?
I really like Cam's Raptors pick because I think it actually makes sense. Like there's talent there. They can defend. They need more bucket getters or a bucket getter. That's exactly what LaVine does. I'm sure the Miami Heat will delude themselves into this conversation somehow. They swung and missed on Bradley Beal. They swung and missed on Dame Lillard. They've been looking for that like kind of scoring two guard for the last, how long? For the last 3-4 years. They've been constantly in those conversations. So I feel like they're going to get in there somehow. But again, like Cam said, with contracts, like what are they going to have to give up? I'm sure Tylor Hero has to be a part of that.
Yeah.
There's a Tylor Hero.
And Tylor Hero's out for a while.
Exactly.
With another injury.
I don't think that excites anybody. I saw kind of a crazy one, and this is probably just disgruntled Warriors fans talking about how maybe ship out Klay Thompson, some of the young guys, something along the lines for LaVine to try to get some scoring help. I don't see that happening. It was like an interesting kind of package some guy threw together on somewhere online. I thought it was kind of interesting. Like, can they rehabilitate him as they did Wiggins and turn him into a more kind of overall basketball player? But I actually, to be honest, don't have an idea because if they trade LaVine, I would assume then they'd have to be willing to move off Vucevic. They'd have to be willing to move off DeRozan. You'd be pretty much throwing in the rebuild towel. And they've been adverse to that for how many years now? So I think it would collectively would mean a massive breakdown of the Bulls. So,
well, I think that's where they're headed.
I think they should have done that last year. Personally, right. Like I totally agree. I think that's where they need to go, where they should be headed. We'll see if they do it. But my favorite one so far, I do like Cam's Raptors pick because I think there's enough of a fit. It would make things interesting. It's not just the generic same old. He's going to the Lakers. It seems like anytime anybody who averages 20 points a game wants to get traded or gets moved, it's the Lakers. He needs to go to the Lakers. Mm-hmm. So I like the Raptors pick by Cam. I don't have an idea where he's going to go. Right. I don't even know if the Bulls will do it, but I think the Raptors would.
I think he's gone. I think he's gone.
I hope so. I do hope so. I'm tired of hearing about it.
I don't dislike Cam's OKC idea too because it would give them a three-headed scoring monster, and if they can retain enough defense, if they don't lose too much on the defensive end, so I wouldn't want to lose Dort. If I'm bringing in LaVine, I want to keep Dort.
That's the tough thing. I think to make the numbers work, it would have to be basically Dort and Bertans' contract with picks.
Yeah.
Right.
But too, like if they continue to be one of the top three teams, do they need a win now move? They might not.
Right.
But also, if you can make it happen with the Bertans good plus Dort, and you can bring in an all-star type guy, why not?
Good luck guarding LaVine and Shea in a back. Good luck trying to match up with that. And I do think something that people have, teams have to be aware of too is, with all these new CBAs, like the organic building of teams might become hard with all the new regulations they're putting in. So it's like how much value, how long can you continue to stockpile picks and try to like balance these two timelines? Like I think at some point they do need to look. I'm not saying it's this year because I mean, you just are now getting Chet, Giddey, and you have so many young guys with like at some point, I do think they are gonna have to push the chips in because they're not going to be able to, just the way the rules are written now, try to have a top 5 team and maintain, a dozen draft picks to keep trying to refill that. So I'm not saying LaVine's the right move.
Not to mention they don't really need the draft picks at this point.
Exactly. So I would not surprise me if they throw, is it for LaVine? Do they wait and see if another disgruntled star comes available? But I would not be shocked to see these guys go, you know what? We can outbid pretty much anybody with both players and picks. And the question I think is LaVine, do they view LaVine as the type of guy that can turn them into a legitimate top 5 team in the league? And if they think the answer is yes, I think that might actually be the most beneficial move for both sides in terms of what they'll get to restart a rebuild in Chicago and what LaVine could do to just supercharge that OKC offense in particular.
Right. All right. How about the MVP race? Do you who you guys looking at for early days in the MVP race?
Oh, I mean, surprise, surprise, Jokic is number 1 in basically every category. So, I mean, it's hard to make a case for anybody else, really. I mean, he's doing this again without Jamal Murray, and they're still the best team in the league. It's hard with just the sheer numbers that Jokic puts up and the team success and all of that, like to find anybody else. But again, Embiid is right behind him in just about every metric. And Embiid is again number 1 in scoring. So, there's always a case for Embiid. You might even argue he has a better case this year without Harden. I mean, behind that, you got to take a good look at Shea. I think he's probably my 3rd place right now.
Nice.
Just with what OKC is doing. Shea's also number 1 in steals per game right now. Absolute 2-way defender. I believe he's top 5 in scoring again this year as well. So, I mean, definitely that's the 3-headed monster I'm looking at.
100% agree with Cam in the exact same order. I think you kind of, in that 4th spot, you kind of throw Jason Tatum in there by default. They're the best team in the league record-wise, and he is averaging, I think, like 28 and 8 a game. So I think he's going to get nods just because, as the MVP in the NBA always boils down to, is you always kind of have to take a look at the number 1 guy on the number 1 team. But I agree with Cam. I think it's Jokic's award to lose. I think him losing last year, obviously winning a championship, but him losing the award last year, I think actually increases his odds this year because you remove that voter fatigue. I never agreed with that. I think one of the takes I heard of surrounding the whole Jokic winning 3 in a row was, if we give Jokic 3 in a row, we're basically saying he's Larry Bird, but he hasn't won anything. So how can we say he's Larry Bird? And now it's like, well, he has the ring, he has the Finals MVP. So I don't think there's any guilty conscience associated with giving him the award. It should be his to lose. Yeah, I think Cam's spot on too. I think Embiid's better than last year, both in terms of narrative and in terms of actually having to carry this team and not have Harden there. And then I think Shea and Tatum kind of rounded out as Shea is the dark horse, kind of young gun making his case, and Tatum kind of by that default, best record, best player. You're going to get some nods.
I agree with you both. The 5th guy I would throw in there, and I put him in 5th, would be Luka. And I think Jokic should have won it last year. And I think he's heading toward winning it this year if they vote for the person who really deserves it. So,
right.
All right. How about Rookie of the Year? I think this is going exactly as we thought. What do you think, Cam?
Go ahead, Cam.
Yeah, it's actually looking really good for my picks. I think even in our fearless forecast, I had Asar Thompson as the 3rd in my Rookie of the Year ballot, and he's been something else, man. Just an athletic. I mean, he's defended as well as just about any rookie I've ever seen on the wing. Absolute beast rebounding. I mean, Wembanyama's had some incredible highs. But you can kind of tell that the Spurs are sort of holding him back a little bit at the moment. I I mean, that stretch against the Suns where they looked incredible, compared to where they are right now as a team, you can tell there's some, some sneak tanking going on there.
Like
But
starting
really,
Jeremy Sohan at point guard.
yeah, I love Sohan. He's not a point guard. And their
That's where
plus
they're
minus
playing
with
him.
their plus minus with Jones on the court is mind-boggling, for him to still be coming off the bench. But I think right now it's Chet's award. I just think with the team success and how important he is to the team's success, I like Chet's odds to get it. Especially since like you can just see it now. I wouldn't doubt that Wembanyama gets shut down at some point in the year with a toe sprain of some sort.
A bruise. He has a bruise something.
Yeah, it's going that way. It's nice. They'll roll him out for the big games. Like the Lakers are in town. He's going to be playing 30 minutes.
Because Adam Silver's going to be sitting courtside with a shotgun saying you have to.
Yeah, exactly. But, they're going to play the Rockets and he's not going to touch the court for, a good chunk of the game. So, and Chet's just a dog. He's the same dog he's always been. He's just like the angriest white boy I've ever seen on the court, whining, talking about headbutts. I love him. I think he's the rookie of the year personally. Especially with that game against the Warriors. I mean, my goodness, hell of a shot. He's got I think for rookie of the year, you have to have that one game where you flash that star talent, that like superstar talent. And he and Wemby have had those, but I think Chet's going to continue to collect those more often throughout the year. I don't know. What do you guys think, though?
I 100% agree. Look, obviously, I have more reasons to be a Chet fan. He comes from my favorite college team. I just feel validated, and that he's too thin. Like he's clearly proving that like he belongs in this league. I mean, how many centers? And I haven't followed the NBA as tightly. Just I've been so busy. But how many centers in the league, Jokic and Embiid notwithstanding, have been like clearly better than him? He's stuffing the stat sheet. It's not like, we kind of figured, okay, he'll block some shots, but like he's rebounding pretty well. He's scoring the ball well, and he's shooting 50 legitimate. He's a legitimate 50, 40, 90 shooter. And we're not talking about, okay, it's 2 games in the season. Like we are into the season now. He's 46% from 3 on almost 4 attempts a game. Like this, again, I don't think that's, sustains the whole year, but okay, so we're legitimately looking at a 7-footer who's probably going to be a 40% 3-point shooter, 38 to 40%. He's clearly fine at the rim. He's rebounding. He's averaging 2.1 blocks. He's averaging right around 3 fouls, which isn't atrocious. So it's not like he's constantly fouling out. And I think Cam's spot on with the point, like you got to have those moments. And obviously when Wemby had that big game against the Suns, that was, there it is. But it's like Chet comes back and rebounds with a 36-point overtime fall-away 3, 16-rebound masterclass against the Warriors in an 18-point comeback. And now it's like, okay, so he's right there too. So I think it's Chet's to lose. And to be honest, as long as he stays healthy, knock on whatever wood there may be. It's so funny when he had that interview and he says, like, who's the best player in the NBA? And he says, me in 3 months or whatever. He's not the best player in the NBA, but you're like, well, shit, he wasn't necessarily super wrong. Like this guy, like I said, I don't know how many big men right now you're taking over him, period. Outside of, a couple of the proven damn near Hall of Fame kind of guys. I think he's been really, really good.
Yep. I gotta agree. My first choice. Well, I picked Holmgren preseason.
I did as well.
I think that's looking really good. Wemby second, and I agree with Cam. Osir would be number 3. Impressive. That kid guards the toughest opponent on the other team every night, and he's holding up. And the Pistons just got to get healthy, find some shooting. Right now, they're not playing Jaden Ivey. Oh, they're playing him, but
They're not really like
yeah.
letting the dog off the chain. Yeah.
Yeah, but that team really is starving for shooting. So, but yeah, anyway. All right. Well, great. I know Cam's got to catch a flight, so we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank, as always, I want to thank all of our listeners. And we had no special guest, but we'll call Drew our special guest since it's been quite some time for him to join us. And if you ever miss an episode, folks, you can get caught up at hoopsprospects.com. We'll be back next week, and we're going to have a special guest because I already know who it is. Cliff Amore, Rutgers star center. I would call him probably the best dunker in college basketball. Of course, we'll talk more about college hoops and the NBA. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
Good to be back.
Yes, good to have you back. And Cam, I hope you don't get stuck in the airport like last Christmas. Remember that? We ended up talking on the phone for like an hour and a half because you were stuck with the
God. That was one of the wildest things I've ever seen, man.
If you get stuck in the airport, you always know I'm there to entertain you with random thoughts about, I don't know. I'll go over the play-by-play of that Notre Dame Oklahoma State game to keep you entertained.
Perfect.
All right, guys.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining me today, especially you, Cam, because I know you had to travel, and we were lucky enough to catch Drew on a rare day home. All right, folks. Everyone have a nice Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Berke Büyük Tuncel. Berke Büyük Tuncel.